Hello, world, and welcome to the Soul Flow podcast.
Soul Flow, Soul Flow.
My name is Kelly, and I am one of the co-hosts, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome and introduce you to my beautiful co-hosts, Steph.
Hey.
Josie.
Hi.
Raquel.
Hi there.
And Aisha.
Hello, everyone.
We are so excited to be here with you and to finally be embarking on this podcast journey. And we thank you for joining us. And for those of you who have already been supporting us along the way, we are forever grateful. As a group, we decided that it would be fun and interesting if in the beginning, we took some time to really showcase each of us so that you get to know us on a little bit more intimate, personal level, and we can share a little bit of our stories with you right from the beginning. So today we are going to sit down and speak with our visionary, Steph. But before we do that, let's just make sure and give a quick check-in. How is everyone doing tonight?
Feeling amazing.
I'm feeling spicy. Hot girl energy.
Hot girl energy. I'm feeling very proud of us for making it here. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm feeling extremely excited. This is a first and huge step for us, and the sky is the limit. I'm very excited for the future.
I agree with you all. This is like Christmas morning. We've been waiting and the anticipation has been building and we are finally here.
We have arrived.
Absolutely.
Mic drop.
Good one, Aisha.
All right. Steph, are you ready to have a little chat with us?
Let's rock and roll, baby. Let's
Awesome.
go.
Everybody, let me introduce you to our visionary, Steph, who really is the one that kind of brought this whole group together. It was her vision that put the words out to the universe, as well as a little message in a Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
And the four of us replied and responded, and the rest is history. So, Steph, before we get into your story, we'd like to ask you our signature question. What makes your soul flow?
Such a beautiful question. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Okay, what makes my soul flow is being in the now, focusing on what is happening in the present moment and not living in the past or in the future, which has been my theme for majority of my life. What makes my heart flow is leading with love as well. Coming back to my heart center, coming back to love, coming back to compassion. So love and compassion is those two words I've built or I've grown to give more of to myself through life events, experiences. And for many years, I lived either in the past or the present. So I would think, well, how could I have approached this particular event differently? Or why did that have to happen to me? For example, I lost my mom when I was 18 years old. And at first it was shocking and it was more of a surprise. Like I didn't even cry when she passed away. And my family members were like, how is her own daughter not even crying? And I felt kind of like, do I have a heart? You know, like what is going on with me? And why, God, did you have to take such a beautiful soul so early? And she was everything to me. She was my best friend, still is my best friend, my guardian angel. I looked up to her. She was an amazing role model. And I held on to that for many years. And, I've been through a series of effed up relationships, betrayals, intimate relationships, friends that I thought were friends, business partners that I thought had my back, that had the heart that I have. Learned the hard way that not everybody is the same. And so, I held on to those past experiences And I always led with, what could I be doing now it was almost like I was trying to control my future. I've always been an overachiever. I've always kind of been strategic with my actions and thinking that doing more is going to get me to my goals faster, that doing more is equals more success, that I was more successful, that I was going to, reach a target or a deadline quicker, which burnout, y'all, is a thing. Like burnout, I didn't know I was experiencing burnout. I was like, I don't know, my energy's low. I was going through these cycles of go, go, go. And I thought I could. I was like, I have all this energy. I'm a generator in human design. So we generate so much energy. And I felt that. I was like, I can go for days. I can work 12 hours, no problem, every day. Because I was so driven. I was so hungry for success. I always had that like go-getter type attitude, like no excuses, no days off. You hear those sayings, and I lived for many years by those words. And, that stemmed from my childhood too.
Steph, thank you for sharing. I love what you said about your soul being in flow when you're really in the present moment. And I think so many people can relate to that. I know I can relate to that, either living in the past or living in the future, right? And just missing the present. And I know that I've heard from multiple people how when we're living in the past, that's really what brings up depression. And when we're living in the future, that's what brings up anxiety. Right. And I can only speak for myself, but I have experience with both of those things. And that's exactly from not being in the present moment. So thank you for articulating that and really just reminding us how important it is to be in the present so that our souls can flow freely.
Yeah.
Right?
And 100%, it's so freeing. Like it's so liberating. It's so freeing. You feel light. Like I felt like a whole weight just got lifted off my shoulders when I focused on the now. And so you hit it 100%, Kelly, with that. I felt free. I felt free.
Beautiful.
All right, Steph, thank you for sharing that with us about your mother. That's a very vulnerable experience to go through. And what would you tell to a listener going through a similar experience, or someone whose parents might be, close to the end of their lives? Even with me, right now my dad is going through some heart issues, and I've never experienced that yet, and it's a very scary thing. So would love to hear more thoughts.
Yeah, thank you, Aisha, for that question. I didn't know what grief was or felt like until years later. I was very lost as a result of my mom passing away. I was so young, right? I was 18. I was still experiencing the world and figuring out who is Steph, my identity, what I wanted to do in this world, who I wanted to be, how I wanted to express myself, all the things. And then all of a sudden, my world just shut down when my mom passed away. And the way that I handled that, I didn't know how to handle that. I mean, at the time, I didn't know to get a therapist or coaching or to hire any of that. That was not an option. My parents never really taught me that was an option. I don't know at that age if it was even, it wasn't a very common avenue. And so because of my environment, I surrounded myself with the partiers and like fun. And so that was how I knew to cope with my grief, which at the time I didn't know was grief. I was numbing, suppressing with partying, alcohol abuse. That was my form of distraction for many years, until one day I woke up and I was like, I don't even remember how I got home. And I've had those moments so many times. I'm like, this is very, it's such a reckless way of thinking and living my life that I literally woke up one day feeling like shit. I was like, I feel terrible. I don't want to live my life like this anymore. I need to make a change. And I did. I literally woke up and just made a shift. It was like I had a spiritual awakening in that moment. Like, sweetheart, you need to make a change before something can happen to you, you know? And so I did. And that's when I really focused on my health. And that's a different journey. But for somebody so the way that I lost my mom was through a car accident. So I didn't even have time to prepare, or, you know, it wasn't like she was sick, she had cancer. I mean, I don't even know what's the better side of those two, but I had no time to even say goodbye. It was like in an instant, she was taken away, you know? And so for somebody that is going through, you know, like for you, Aisha, is it heart disease? Heart disease that you're...
He's in heart rehab right now.
Yeah.
He's in heart rehab. Yeah.
Just spending as much time as you can with, you know, with whoever is battling something, you know, whether it's sickness, cancer, or spending as much time as you can with them, and just, you know, doing the work that you need to do for yourself to prepare for that moment. And that looks different for everyone. You know, now, if it was knowing what I know now, I would have, you know, seeked a therapist probably at the time, and seek somebody to really let out my emotions, because I was holding it. I was suppressing it. There was no release. I was releasing in a toxic way of numbing, which is not releasing. I'm just pushing down my emotions. So now I would actually, you know, probably do some like embodiment work, or like clearing out my blocked energy, you know, working with an energy healer, which, you know, I did in the later part of my years, maybe, you know, gone to a therapist. So those are some avenues that, you know, people can seek.
Sounds like there was a lot of avoidance, right? I feel like a lot of us aren't taught how to emotionally express. So naturally we tend towards avoidance.
Oh, I avoided a lot. And also to add to that, Aisha, I suppressed a lot of anger. I was very angry, which I didn't know was angry. I didn't know it was angry. It showed up in my intimate relationships, and I took it out on the people that cared about me the most. And I would highly recommend definitely doing the work internally. Like if you're going through grief, and you think you're okay, you know, you think you're doing fine. Oh, I got it. It's not a big deal. I can brush it under the rug. No, like for me, it showed up kind of out of nowhere, unexpectedly. And I'm like, wow, where did this anger come from? And it kept showing up. And for many years, I was like, no, it's not me. It's the other person. It's my partner. It's so-and-so, right? But who's the common denominator in all this? Who's attracting all of this? I'm the one attracting, you know? And so in that moment, I was like, yep, I'm obviously holding on to anger, or I've become very angry, and I never released it until I did the work, until I worked with the energy healer, until I, you know, did some therapy work and coaching work that, yeah, I was able to, that was very important for me to release that anger, one, and to give that inner child love that she needed.
That's so much stuff, and I can't even begin to imagine. Like Aisha said, I have my dad is going through that right now, to where he's kind of in the end of his life, and he's, you know, paying for a lot of the choices that he made. He smoked all his life and drank a lot, you know, so right now he's suffering from that, and it breaks my heart, but I, you know, can't imagine what it would be like to lose a parent in an instant like that. And that must have been really heartbreaking. And then also knowing from a little bit from your background, can you tell our listeners, because I know that you grew up in an Asian household, and I know that also, you know, almost stereotypically, the kind of conditioning that happens in that kind of environment is deep as well, and it's certainly an overall conditioning of you got to do amazing. You got to excel. Don't show your feelings, or else you are weak. Suppress, work hard. How did that not only influence your healing journey, but is that what brought you to your breaking point to where you had to choose something different?
Oh, such a great question, Raquel. 100%. Growing up in an Asian household, I felt like I couldn't fully be myself. I couldn't fully express truly what was going on in my inner world. It was like, no, you got to be tough. You got to, you don't cry. Like crying was looked upon as being weak. So then, what's that?
Not a release.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like, no, don't cry. Like, why are you crying? And then, with that comes like my parents would say it they would raise their voice, like, don't cry. And so then I'm like, automatically, I just contracted, shut down, like, okay, and there was anger in the way that they communicated in our household. And so I just was taught to obey and just
be perfect.
Right. Just, I'm going to shut my mouth. And as long as I'm getting good grades, I'm performing well in school, I'm making them happy. Of course, right. I was happy to get good grades. I'm like, yeah, I have a little nerdy side, so I'm like, yeah, I want to get good grades. But it was almost like that overachiever, like that was stemmed from childhood because of the expectations from me. They wanted me to be successful, which meant being a lawyer, being a doctor, that's a secure job. Being an entrepreneur, that is looked upon as being risky. It's not a for sure thing that you're going to make it. Your business may make it and it may not. And taking risks in my household growing up was the mindset was very lack and scarcity mindset. More so with my father. My mom, she was, very giving. She was the breadwinner of the family. She worked 3 jobs. And so seeing that, right, I looked at my mom was my role model. So seeing her constantly working, going from one job to another to provide for our family, that's in my eyes, I'm like, wow, like I looked up to that. So then I became her in a sense. So when she left, the physical realm, it was almost like I wanted to continue her legacy of mama was a hard worker. I get to be a hard worker. I saw that growing up.
I'm going to make her proud.
I'm going to make her proud 100%, Raquel. And yeah, I sucked it up. No matter how tired I was, no matter how drained, exhausted, I was like, I'm going to do it anyways, because she never vocalized anything growing up that she was tired. I physically saw that she was tired. She was, barely sleeping. She was moody, but she still sucked it up and did it anyways. And so I followed in her footsteps and did it anyways. And that's where burnout was a thing for me. That overachiever a mindset, way of maneuvering through life was like, you just keep pushing, you keep going, because that is success. That is going to get you, the success that, and success is that's defined in such a broad word. What is success to me could be different to Josie, to Aisha, to each of you, right? And I've learned now success it does not equal what I have. It's not monetary. It's not materialistic things. It's success now is who I become internally, who I am on the inside. To me, that is success. Who I've evolved, who I continue to evolve to, and continuing to just like lead with love lead with gratitude, lead with appreciation, compassion is my definition of success. Being a good human and leading with kindness.
And how lucky are we that you are here to break these cycles, right? To do differently than your parents were taught, and to do differently even than your culture, right? Like, and to come here and to say, no, we can do it differently. We can pay attention to ourselves. We can take care of ourselves and follow our dharma and be happy doing it and help others as well. And just make Earth a better place, right?
100%. I saw the scarcity and the lack mindset from my childhood growing up, and I was like, I don't want to continue that. I worked to have an abundant mindset of, for many years, but before abundance looks different to me now than it did before. It's not like, oh, how much money am I going to make? To me, abundance it comes from internal. It comes from, there's nothing on the external that can make me feel abundant. It's truly me being connected to me and operating from my heart center and knowing who I am to the core and being proud of who I am. And be able to speak, speaking my truth, speaking my truth.
Before I hand it back to you, Kelly, I just wanted to say how much I see you, Steph. Like, growing up in an Asian household, it's such a tricky balance of like loving your culture and your parents and your religion, but also being torn apart in this like, okay, but I want to have a form of individuality in my own life and like things that aren't part of exactly what they're doing and that doesn't make me bad. That doesn't make me a bad person. That just makes me who I am. So I really see you in that. It's been a struggle of a lifetime for me too, but we're doing it and we are breaking these cycles so our children will just have this freedom as they're born.
It's what breaking ancestral was it the ancestral lineage, right?
We are the chosen ones.
Yeah,
the chosen ones.
Rainbow sheep.
And I don't hold it against my parents, or I don't blame them for anything. I love them unconditionally. They raised me in a way that they knew how. And I came out to be just fine, in my opinion. So they did something right. And
they traveled across seas, across the worlds to get here. And, there's their trauma that they have to deal with, and they don't have the tools like we do in this generation now. We have the tools. If anything, I just want to help them now to release some of their trauma as well, because they come here and create all this abundance and still have a hard time feeling into it because exactly they're in that scarcity cycle. All right, Kelly, back to you.
Thank you, Steph. So much goodness there. Oh my gosh. Whew. You mentioned a while ago about you had that moment where after you had been numbing for a while and you woke up one morning, it was just kind of like this switch of like, nope, I need better. I'm going to do better. This was it. Now, I don't know. And if this was that moment for you, feel free to expand on how that occurred. Or if there was another moment, maybe later on in your evolution. But what was really what you would identify as the pivotal moment for your spiritual awakening, right? Not necessarily like I need to do better. Maybe it was, but what was that spiritual awakening moment for you? Or was it more of a transition? Maybe like mine was a little bit more of a transition.
Yeah, definitely me waking up that morning and feeling like shit. Definitely was the stepping stone. That was like the first initial hit of you got to get your act together. So I feel like that definitely was like the starting point of many awakenings to come.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed for many years, and I chose to ignore it too, but I felt like I was doing too much. It was almost like I was going through these seasons and cycles of, like I would feel amazing on top of the world, like I can do it all. And then I would crash.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would, take a moment, not a very long moment, because my rest is, if you all know me, I have a lot of energy, and my sisters here, they know, like, if they got to remind me to rest still. I'm a lot better now. However, it's, there was a moment in my life where it was almost predictable. Like, actually, I had a business coach who he knew in the beginning part of me building my business, he studied me and he knew like the week that I was going to have low energy. It was that predictable.
Oh,
Yeah. And I don't know how he knew, but he just like, I just know like your pattern, because every time I felt in the low, I would text him and express and be like, and I would just vent. So then he noticed my pattern of like, oh, every 5 weeks you text me and this is how you sound. So he like noticed the pattern and he brought that to my attention. And I was like, oh, wow. But I was like, I got goals. I got, I want to be, I want to make this amount of money by this age and have an amazing life for my family. Me being a visionary, always dreaming of all the things that I want, my house, me traveling, providing for my family, my kids, etc. So I'm like, well, I can't do that just sitting here on my couch. Little do I know, now I know doing less actually means doing more. You can actually achieve more by doing less. And so I think it was more of like an accumulation, Kelly, where just throughout the years, I started noticing my patterns. I started feeling like I wasn't connected to myself. I felt like something wasn't right. I think my awareness started to grow, my third eye, my intuition started growing. And I was like, yeah, there is something off. I don't know what it is, but I just don't feel connected in my body. And I feel like I should not be experiencing these highs and lows of like, why can't I just be in a a balanced state? Like, why do I have to feel like I'm on this high and then I'm crashing and then, so I think that for me really, I noticed that pattern. And also the anger that I held for many years too, that kept showing up in my relationships. I was like, why am I so angry? And one, I know a lot of things we project, right? We project to the people that we love the most. It comes out. And I was like, obviously I'm projecting something. I'm projecting anger. And so for me, it was very important for me to really do the work to heal that, because I didn't want to show up angry and to continue hurting people the way that I was hurting people. I was like, I cannot repeat this. Like, I know that's not me to the core. That's not Steph. I knew that much. And through the years, my heart was, I felt like my heart closed because of all the things that I was creating. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the other person. We were probably co-creating it together, but a lot of it is, we're mirrors of each other. So when that comes up with another person, if it's if anger shows up in that interaction, I mean, it's a reflection of each other. So
I was going to just say that same thing, and how beautiful that your business coach was able to be that mirror for you to help you recognize your patterns and really start your spiritual awakening, right? Oh, so amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Josie has a question for you.
And going off of that, Kelly, breaking those patterns, you mentioned that a lot, Steph, actually breaking those patterns. for listeners who grew up with that mindset of working hard and maybe they went through a tragic experience, you also talked about doing the inner work. What guidance and what specific practices did you do to help our listeners know like what they can do to move forward in their darkness right now?
Yeah, great question. I started listening to podcasts. I started tuning into. Oh, and here we are starting a podcast.
Paying it forward, baby.
I've been manifesting this for many, many, many years. Yes, I started listening to podcasts and I was like, wow, I gained a lot of wisdom and gems and knowledge from these podcasts and hearing people's stories, hearing what other people went through. I'm like, wow, I resonate with that person. I resonate with his or her story. And it gave me a sense of strength in that moment. Like, I am not the only one that is experiencing this. So hearing other people's stories, it gave me that hope again, that courage, that confidence that I too can get out of this. This is not a forever feeling. I also had many coaches and mentors that helped me both from the goodness of their heart. Some I hired, some just offered their heart to me. And health, focusing on my health, starting to work out, hiring a personal trainer, because at the time, I was like 20 years old. I didn't know. I was very like vain, I guess. I just wanted abs and arms. But I knew, like, I felt like deep down, me focusing on my health was going to just change. It was going to change me. And it was going to give me a new focus and new lifestyle, essentially. And so I went down a path of focusing on my health and really working on initially it was like, yeah, to look good, to feel good, but then it became even deeper, which I can definitely, get into that more too.
Yeah, Steph, and what I was going to ask, because obviously all of us here met because we have invested in ourselves, right? We met through the Dharma Coaching Institute, which is, was a great resource for us to evolve even further and really find out how we can refine our Dharma, if you will. But I know that for me, when I started investing in myself, there was a reluctance there, almost from a little feeling of lack, like you said, that I felt like I couldn't put that money out, that money was I was going to need that money for something else later on, and I couldn't put that money out into myself. And I know that for me, once I started doing it, and the more I started doing it, things started to change. And the more I did it, the more I was actually rewarded, and the more money I came, and the more that money I never missed that money at all. How was that for you? And what would you tell our listeners that maybe want to hire a coach, but have never worked with a coach before, don't really understand what they're going to get out of it? What would you say to our listeners?
Yeah, that's an awesome point that you brought up, Raquel. At first, it's scary. It's scary, hearing the cost of some of these services or some of these hiring certain coaches. I mean, it's like thousands of dollars. And at a young age, it's like, oh God, how many hours do I got to put in for an hour of coaching from this coach, right? Like, how many hours is that at the time? Like, how at the time I was working at Starbucks, how many lattes do I need to make? I was working with clothes too. Like, oh God, how many hours do I need to do? Like re-racking clothes. And I was like thinking all those things. And so in the beginning, it was hard. And of course, coming from that scarcity mindset upbringing, but then I always came back to the future. Like so thinking about the future it served me to a certain point until it didn't, because I was because I'm such a big visionary and I always thought about like success meant more to me than anything. And I was like, I always felt like the biggest gift that I can give myself is to invest in myself. And honestly, I was so sick of feeling the way that I was feeling at the time. Like I was at my lowest energetically. I was like, I'm burnt out. I'm exhausted. I feel something is missing in my life. I'm tired of feeling sick and tired, essentially. So it was almost like this is the only option. I tried to figure things out myself. And I feel like by hiring a coach or working with someone that I could have saved, like if I would have hired somebody a lot sooner, I could have saved a lot of time. And for me, time is priceless. You cannot put money, there's no comparison. Time is money, essentially. And I knew that was the one of the greatest forms of love that I could give myself. It's investing in yourself, is loving yourself, is self-care, it's giving yourself compassion. And and I always knew that by me investing in myself, I can only make a greater impact. I can only reach the masses and be that global influencer icon that I want to be with my people, with my tribe. But I can't do that like if I'm just here trying to figure things out on my own and I'm not getting anywhere. Because for a long time, I wasn't getting anywhere. I was like a hamster on the wheel, just running to nowhere. And so for those of you that are questioning or are coming from this scarcity mindset, just know that you are worth it. Like you are effing worth it, that you deserve that you are worthy, that you deserve everything and anything that your heart desires, abundance, joy, happiness. Like you effing deserve it. Money comes and goes, but time is precious. Time is something that you cannot take, that you can't, take back.
Bring back. Yeah.
Bring back, right? And so just know that by investing in you, it's going to come back to you tenfolds.
Well said, Steph. Well said. Love it.
This is the reason why we're here.
What's that? I mean, we all invested.
The reason we are here.
The Dharma
we all invested in ourselves.
Thousands and thousands
of dollars. If y'all don't know how much this course was, y'all could look it up. It's not a secret.
None of us, like we have all taken other courses and therapy and coaching. And it's expensive, but it's so valuable. It's so much more valuable than the monetary value. That's why it's expensive, because it's not just that course. They didn't just come up with that and here it is. It's years and years, if not decades of experience and trial and error and study and deep reflection within themselves to find the connection with the universe, to bring this message that we are so ready to put out there to help other souls find their purpose as well.
It's about refining yourself. When we invest in ourselves, you're giving yourself all this space, all this, like you're showing your worth to yourself before anybody else. You pouring your cup first, and then
your mask first, right?
And then you give from abundance.
How you treat yourself is a reflection of how others will treat you. Remember that it comes from you first. So if you're questioning your life and the external and why you're not where you're at, why you're not receiving the type of relationships, love, compassion from others, look from within first. If you're not having the friendships that you ideally want, you're not in the environment that you want to be in, you're not in the intimate relationship that you ideally want to be in, if you're not in the job that you want, stop pointing the fingers and look from within and start there.
Such great advice. Such great advice. Yes. Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much for sharing yourself with us tonight and with the world.
Yeah.
And before we say our official goodbyes, where can our listeners connect with you further if they're interested in maybe exploring some coaching or just connecting with you in general?
Yeah. I am on Instagram. And for those of you that are watching, it's on the screen, Soul Glow Coaching. You can also find me at my website, soulglowcoaching.com. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you all and hearing your story.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ladies, thank you. That was a wrap on our first episode. Woohoo! Woo!
Oh, I do have a saying. Remember, doing less is actually doing more. So embrace stillness, embrace the sacred pause, because there is gifts and gems in the sacred pause. You don't always have to be in the constant state of doing. Trust and surrender, and the universe will respond.
Beautiful.
Thank
you again, ladies, so much.
Yeah.
We'll catch you next time.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.